Yes, Mike, an A-list crowd, if you like. Some of the biggest names in business, politics, the entertainment industry. Names such as you mentioned, Kevin Rudd, but James Packer, Ryan Stokes, actors like Kate Blanchett to be here tonight. And with me actually at the moment, the man you just mentioned in the intro, Andrew Forrest. Andrew, this has been a great passion of yours, the fight to end Indigenous disadvantage. Tell us how, though, you managed to get all of these big names uniting behind this cause that you're so passionate about.
I think all it takes is people to see how real it is to you. You say, this is what I'm doing. We are going to get there, but it's going to be so much easier if you come with me. And if you come with me, others will come with me. And in the end, if we do this right, every Australian can join this cause. We can say tonight, the disparity has its clock ticking against it.
How do you know this will be the campaign to end it all, though, to make sure this is the last generation which suffers disadvantage?
You know, in everything I've done, I've always started at the end. Say, take Forrest Metals Group, it's one of Australia's largest companies now. But it didn't start like that. It started with a vision of where we needed to be, about where Asia was going and how Western Australia and Australia could join that terrific growth. And then you step back to where we are now, right? The 19th of March 2010. So we started creating tens of thousands of jobs. We created this really high-class problem for government to have to handle, a huge demand-side pull from employers across Australia, big and small, the greengrocer, the carpentry firms, the big businesses, and they've all said, well, we guarantee, we covenant, right? We went covenant because biblically it's the strongest word you can give. We covenant to employ Indigenous people when they are trained, and we can match that training in with those jobs for the first time. You wrap training into jobs, you wrap employment into training, you then wrap the environment which leads kids to want to stay at school. They can see that job, it's guaranteed. So they stay at school because they have hope. Their parents may not have, their parents may have been on welfare, but their parents can give them the choice. So we wrap that into their final goal and we can guarantee them that goal.
You've got an aim to have 50,000 Indigenous Australians into work, into training and into jobs. Obviously, there's support from the government for campaigns like this. Behind the scenes, though, what are you getting from the government to back you up? You
know, we have a lot of applause and a lot of cheering. We have a little bit of funding, but the funding for GenerationOne is entirely non-government. It is put together by people who actually did it a little tough themselves. You know, the Fox family, the Packer family. Jamie actually did it tough as a kid. Kerry Stokes did it really tough. You know, the Lowies came out as Hungarian Jews. They know what it's like to be isolated. All these families stepped up and said, Forrest, you're going to do this, we're coming with you.
Tell us about your own background, because this is really where your passion comes from. Your childhood, you had, all of your friends really were Indigenous Australians.
Yeah, look, they were. I mean, we're all formed as the people we are now by how how people treated us as kids. And for me, I was mentored by Aboriginal people. There's an old boy called Scotty Black. I'll never forget him. You know, he was one of the Indigenous elders. He was also one of West Australia's greatest stockmen. And I remember getting into a jam and I remember thinking, I can never do this. And this old boy, he came up to me and he put his hand on my little head. I was about 3 foot tall. He made me feel about 10 feet tall. And he said, you can do this. I believe in you. Now get on and do it. You can make it. And he mentored me, and I will never, ever forget that. Now, I have to say 20 or 30 years later, I was at the funeral of his oldest son, his youngest son, who was my really good mate. And all my mates from my childhood and the Aboriginal boarding school who I went to with them, we're like a little gang, I suppose. He was the last one to die. And I thought, enough is enough, you know. We just can't keep living like this. We can't have this massive disparity exist. So I thought, well, thank God, let's make a difference.
And you are so enthusiastic, and this is very personal for you, as you've just displayed to us. There is a promotional caravan which will be going right around the country, 23 stops, I understand, promoting this campaign. You'll be on that caravan. Tell us about it.
It's a great big black bus. It's emblazoned GenerationOne. Have an esky in the middle. You know, Lou down the back, got all the essentials. And I've said to people like, you know, Ryan Stokes, you know, son, you're going to be inheriting an empire soon. You're going to be running almost corporations all over the world. But hey, you're not going to have made it big time unless you get on that bus.
Well, it sounds like great fun. You're also doing at about half of those locations around the country's business breakfasts, talking to businesses in the area and encouraging them to take on Indigenous workers. But what's the message you're giving them to convince them that, you know, you're a businessman, there's got to be a business case, it's more than social responsibility, you've got to prove to them how it helps the bottom line. How do you do that?
Oh, look, it's really quite simple. You know, the more I've got to know Aboriginal people, the more I've learnt you love Aboriginal people. And it isn't about business. Businesses, you know, they can guarantee the jobs, and they've stepped up. 20,000 jobs made available to Aboriginal people. There's never, ever been anything like that in Australia's history. But what this campaign about, what GenerationOne is about, is every single one of us, you, me, mum and dad, you know, son and daughter at school, everyone, we hop on that GenerationOne website. There's a small list of things which we can all do. They're not that tough. But if we get on and do them, if we punch that send button after we've typed in our email address and we've said what we want to do, in the years to come, we won't have a disparity.
Andrew Forrest, we thank you for your time. You're the man that everyone wants to speak to tonight, so we'll get you off to the event. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
That's Andrew Forrest, the Fortescue Metals CEO, of course, Australia's richest man, and he's the man driving this campaign tonight. Many more people involved, and through the night, of course, we'll be bringing you pictures, and we've got a couple of more interviews coming up.
For generations and generations.